Hash Rosin Disposable. This is from Bay Smokes. Big shout out to them for sending this through. They actually sent a couple right here. I got Donnie Burger and GMO. These are THC.
It really should be up to my best friend.
From daring escapes to shocking confrontations, these are the craziest moments inmates were caught on camera. October 25th, 2016, Illinois, Cook County Jail was thrown into chaos when a fight broke out in Division 9, the highest security area where the most dangerous inmates are kept. A few inmates decided to settle their scores, fueled by grudges and power struggle. The lunchroom, usually a pretty boring place, turned into a battlefield as all hell broke loose. 10 inmates got into a brawl, some even using makeshift weapons. Eventually, 20 of them ended up injured, a few with some stab wounds. And it wasn't just the inmates involved here. 2 corrections officers also got caught up in the chaos. One officer got hit in the face with a food tray, and the other got hurt trying to break up the fight. Luckily, no one died, but the whole crazy scene left everyone shaken. August 15th, 2021, downtown St. Louis. A disturbance breaks out at City Justice Center, CJC, resulting in injuries to several detainees. The chaos started around 12:30 a.m. when approximately 24 detainees were enjoying some recreation time on the 4th floor. Suddenly, another dirty dozen come along and start attacking 4 others, beating and kicking them. Officers quickly intervened, removing victims from the area, using pepper spray if they had to. Unfortunately, this is just one of many attacks that have occurred within the facility. This happened only 2 weeks after the previous one, marking a total of 6 at the downtown facility in that year alone. And just last year, several inmates assaulted an unarmed guard and held him hostage for 2 hours, demanding hot food in exchange for his release. Looks like trouble's always going down at the CJC. September 23rd, 2017, chaos erupts at Clayton Facility, a private prison run by the Florida-based GEO Group. Now, what exactly happened that day? Rookie correctional officer Matt Schreiner was doing his rounds on Cell Block 3's upper tier. He stops at Cell 203, where cameras catch him chatting through a locked door with one of the most dangerous inmates in here, Clifton Bloomfield, a notorious convicted serial killer serving multiple life terms after killing 5 people in Albuquerque. The two would exchange a few words, and then in a total disregard for security, Schreiner unlocks Bloomfield's cell door. Next thing you know, Bloomfield attacks Schreiner and overpowers him with a sharpened toothbrush turned homemade weapon. Schreiner's taken hostage but manages to break free. He races down to the main level, grabs his walkie-talkie and sprints for help. But with the keys to the entire 40-man cell block and no guards, the inmates took control. Cell doors were flung open and prisoners went on a brutal rampage. They even barricaded the main entry. Some of them used their own newfound freedom to settle old scores. One inmate suspected of being an informant was brutally assaulted in his cell, with his throat slashed. Other inmates took advantage of the chaos by disabling the prison surveillance cameras, starting a fire, and trashing the cell block. The riot response team steps in, filling the place up with tear gas. Slowly but surely, they round up all the inmates, handcuff them, and escort them to the day room. An inmate attacked in here was found unconscious in a pool of blood. Rescuers quickly pulled him out and called for an ambulance. Miraculously, he survived. In the end, the state had to step in and take over direct operation to that prison once again. I don't think they want this to kind of happen again. It's unfortunate, but riots happen in prisons more often than we'd like to think. March 27th, 2018. Things take a dark turn at Cheatham County Jail in Tennessee. A huge fight breaks out, leaving 5 inmates and 2 officers hurt. This whole chaotic ordeal was caught on camera for everyone to see. The sheriff said the riot started because of a feud between inmates. But there's more to it than that, because the jail, which was built for 116 people, was holding around 192, causing tensions to reach a breaking point. After it was all over, 6 inmates were charged for adding fuel to the fire. February 2020. Another riot sparks out at Sandoval County Detention Center in New Mexico. Things got pretty crazy when 9 prisoners refused to get back into their cells. Courts decided to start, and the administration had to bring in a special task force. But prisoners still weren't willing to give up so easily. They blocked that door, put soapy water all over the place, and they would throw microwave explosives and other items at this task force. Now, the team had to use flashbangs to confuse the inmates, and eventually, they did manage to capture all of them. The prisoners were later charged with unlawful assault on a jail and conspiracy to commit unlawful assault on a jail. January 12, 2021, a unique ride takes place at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. What made this one stand out? Well, it was actually the guards who orchestrated it, not the inmates. A lawsuit that followed claimed that the guards had planned or helped carried out the forced removal of detainees from their cells, even if they didn't comply with orders to handcuff themselves. This was in response to when the detainees allegedly splashed urine and feces at the guards. According to guidelines from the New Jersey Department of Corrections, detainees should only be forcibly removed if they refuse to be handcuffed and leave their cells voluntarily. After these planned extractions, one inmate ended up with a concussion after being forcefully pulled from her cell and struck around 30 times by 5 officers. Another victim, who also didn't comply with orders, suffered skull fractures and was left bloodied and beaten with boot marks all over her body. 15 officers were later indicted by a grand jury for their involvement in these forced cell extractions with the intention of punishing, intimidating, or terrorizing the inmates. But these incidents were just the tip of the iceberg at this notorious prison. It's faced numerous scandals, including allegations of officers assaulting inmates and even allowing gambling up in here. July 15th, 2017. A surveillance video from inside the Rio Arriba County Jail in Tierra Amarilla caught accused murderer Eamon Herrera attacking several guards. At the time, Herrera was accused of committing 5 murders across northern New Mexico. It was believed that he killed his stepdad, brother, and mother before gunning down 2 strangers. From the video, it's evident that Herrera had a plan. While on an hour break outside his cell, Herrera asked a guard to check on his sink. As the guard went to inspect it, he closed the door behind him, trapping him inside. He then quickly grabs a flashlight hidden under a nearby desk and waits for another guard to pass by. As the guard runs through the hallway, Herrera strikes him with a heavy metal flashlight. A struggle ensued with the guard using a plastic chair to defend himself. Now a third guard's here, and Herrera was finally subdued and placed into a restraining chair. He was later convicted of 4 consecutive life sentences for the murders, as well as several charges related to assaulting the guards. September 15th, 2018. A familiar scene unfolds at Cook County Jail. A bus carrying a group of handcuffed inmates made its way to court into Chicago suburbs. Now, this is all kind of routine, with detainees attending their hearings and returning to jail without any issues. However, there are times when things go south, especially when dangerous inmates are involved, like those who were supposed to be transported separately. One such inmate was Gavanti Surratt. He was locked up in August 2016 on a burglary charge. While on bail, he allegedly committed a series of armed robberies, leading to his return to jail. During his time in jail, he was reportedly involved in at least 15 fights. Now, despite his troubled history, Surratt was placed on a bus heading towards a hearing. During the trip, he managed to free himself and attacked another inmate using a steel lock and chain of the restraints as a weapon. In the following years, he was involved in 4 more fights, 2 of which occurred.
Valia Harkonnen, you are the strongest among us.
Without spice, the great houses would feed me to the world. The troubles are far greater than just Arrakis.
Dune Prophecy, streaming exclusively on Max.
Right now at Domino's, you can carry out any large one-topping pizza when you order online.
It's better than nothing.
You know, the TimberTech products compared to wood, it's the only product that I've personally found that has that look and feel of wood. It's the closest thing to it in the world of composites.
You just really need to look at it. They've nailed the colors on this. There's a great range of color in there. The grain pattern, the comb look to it is fantastic.
It doesn't have that like weird plasticky look. It just looks like it's supposed to be there. It looks like what you want it to look like. It looks like your investment made sense.
On buses. Seems like he didn't learn his lesson, or perhaps the authorities failed to learn theirs. February 15th, 2017, 19-year-old Antoine Jones was detained and charged with first-degree murder in the killing of Takia Holmes, a girl from Chicago who got shot in the head. Jones opened fire on 3 rival gang members in the neighborhood after a drug turf dispute, and sadly, a stray bullet hit this poor innocent girl while she was riding in the van with her mom. In a surveillance video from the Cook County Sheriff's Department, Jones appears to be sleeping while he was handcuffed to a chair in the holding room before appearing in bond court. Then, out of nowhere, another inmate comes up and repeatedly punches him. Interestingly, the inmate was detained on his own murder charge, but the murder of an innocent girl had clearly struck a nerve with him. The inmate was issued a disciplinary ticket. As for Jones, he was given 71 years in prison earlier this year. As you've already seen in prison, it's not common for inmates to really team up to settle scores with each other. But sometimes, though, they have issues with corrections officers, and things can get pretty messy very quickly. This happened a couple of times down in Arizona. November 3rd, 2020, a few inmates took turns attacking a single officer. The assault went on for about 2 minutes before any backup showed up, with the officer managing to get out on his own. And on June 21st, 2021, the corrections officer had to be airlifted to the hospital after a brutal assault. Prison officials later say that both attacks were because of the same security issue, custody override, which basically means that security levels were lowered, putting them in less secure areas. But seriously, why would anybody put a super dangerous inmate in a less secure unit? Looks like a lot of prison officials need to think about that for a bit, because we got many more to go through on this list today. Here we have Deputy Daniel Guzman from Washington County caught off guard when an inmate starts a fight with him. This lasts about 30 seconds, but for Guzman, those may have been the longest 30 seconds of his life. Late March 2019, Deputy Guzman had just started an overtime shift. The inmates were enjoying some free time, and everything seemed normal until Guzman noticed an inmate circling his desk in the middle of the pod. The inmate turned out to be Hayden Davis, who was in jail at that time for breaking into a Beaverton home. Guzman greeted Davis, but he didn't respond. Suddenly, Davis lunges at him out of nowhere. Guzman's training kicked in, and he shoves him to create some distance. Now, Guzman could have jumped on Davis and handcuffed him. The thought of being on the ground with over 50 inmates, though, was terrifying. He didn't know who was there to help and who wasn't. Davis charges Guzman again, and that's when the fight begins. Luckily, another inmate intervened, grabbing Davis and throwing him to the ground, allowing Guzman to regain control of the situation. Guzman would suffer minor injuries to his eye and knuckles. As for Davis, he was given over 6 years in prison for that fight and the original crime that landed him in jail. July 16th, 2019, Mitchell Lamb and Alex Benacomo, guards at the Southern New Mexico Correctional Facility, entered a pod housing 16 inmates. They intended to put the pod on lockdown due to a verbal altercation between an inmate and a control center officer. However, their plans were disrupted when 5 inmates rushed them into a hallway, where they were assaulted for a half a minute. During the attack, the inmates used the guards' flashlights and radios as a weapon to punch, kick, and beat down the guards. Lamb and Benacomo would walk out of here with non-life-threatening injuries. All 7 inmates were charged in connection with the incident, 2 of whom were charged with attempted murder. August 15th, 2017, we're still in New Mexico, where things get even crazier. 2 officers at the Penitentiary of New Mexico were dealing with some seriously dangerous inmates when they were stabbed with shivs. The officers, just starting their shift, patted down inmates as they left their cells. 2 of the inmates, Lorenzo and Joe Martinez, decided to cause some trouble. Lorenzo distracted an officer while Joe snuck up behind him, grabbed his neck, and stabbed him in the back of the head multiple times. Another officer tried to intervene, but Lorenzo attacked him too. Thankfully, a 3rd officer stops this chaos by firing non-lethal rounds from a shotgun. The guards survived the brutal attack and eventually made a full recovery. The 2 inmates were charged and convicted of battery on a peace officer and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. They are now serving a lengthy prison sentence. December 5th, 2016. A shocking incident occurs at Cook County Jail in Chicago, Illinois. An inmate named Jimmy Smith was caught on camera punching a female guard in his cell. The attack happened when a guard caught Smith using a laptop to watch a talk show called My Back's Against the Wall. Smith, who was seen in jail for 7 years facing charges of attempted murder and sexual assault, didn't take kindly to the guard trying to take away his laptop. He reacted violently, hitting her in the face. Luckily, other male officers quickly intervened and Smith surrendered without further incident. And actually, the video on the laptop turned out to be Smith hosting a show with inappropriate pictures of himself inside the jail. Smith had been given the laptop to help with his defense for his court case, but instead he ended up with more